Hello, my name is Zach Solomon. I am the manager of membership and education for the Palm Springs International Film Society. We are so grateful to have Emerald Fennell and Carey Mulligan, the writer, director, and producer of Promising Young Women and the star of Promising Young Women. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you and have your film. And I want to thank Focus Features for making the film available to our members and making this conversation happen as well. I'm going to get started right into it. Emerald, with your process, obviously this film takes in really something that's really tragic and sad and toxic of what's going on currently. But you also really juxtapose it with a lot of humor. What's your process of finding that balance, and how do you juxtapose that darkness with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there necessarily is a process, except that in my own life, I've only ever really been able to communicate complicated or difficult things with humour. I think it's something that's very common for a lot of people, that we're not great at maybe talking about things in a very direct way, but we can talk about the complicated stuff couched in this sort of dark gallows humour. So yeah, for me, it's sort of the two things come together in a funny way. I don't know that I would have been able to write something that didn't have that scene running through it.
Is it more about the personal processing, or is it more about what you think you like as far as entertainment and what an audience you will respond to?
Definitely, it's a kind of it's a personal thing. Like I don't know. I've never been very good at writing for. I think this movie would have probably been quite difficult if I'd been wanting to make it incredibly sort of, I don't know, straightforward. But I think it's a weird thing when we have conversations like this. You have to think about the way you work quite analytically, but I've never really been very analytical. So I just sort of, it tends to just come out, and it is sort of what it is in a weird way. I don't have that much control over it.
Yeah. And Carey, with this kind of, it seems like a different type of role for you. Did you notice that going into it, and what gravitated you to the film?
Yeah, I mean, the script and everything that the character offered in terms of such a kind of complicated, rich, interesting person was so exciting. I mean, I always try and do, in at least for myself, things that I haven't done before. And I think a lot of the time I've tried to, I've just sort of gone where the best writing is, and often that's sort of brought me into classical stuff. You know, there's a reason that classics get told over and over again, is because the writing is so good. And so that's sort of where I've, spent a decent amount of the last 10 years. But I was always looking for something contemporary to do, where the writing was, felt like something that was timeless and of the same kind of, felt like a sort of really powerful, timeless story, and this really felt like that to me. I think these issues are sort of age old, and I fell in love with the character, but the script as a whole was just so extraordinary. So it was sort of felt like a no-brainer, really, reading this one, and then of course meeting Emerald quickly afterwards.
And then for both of you, I guess, and starting with Emerald, with being an actor as well, do you feel like you're acting out as you're writing? Is that something that you're doing? And then can you tell a difference, Carey, with having an actor as a director, and what the process is for you? Start with Emerald.
I don't think I do act it, but I definitely write it. I feel very much inside it when I'm writing. So I'm writing it all just in my head rather than on paper. And I definitely have the feeling that I'm in it, but certainly not acting it. I don't think, more like a sort of bystander in the room, like a sort of ghost, maybe, sort of, or creepy voyeur. Where I definitely can feel the room that it's happening in, and all the people are there. But but I'm not in it. And I'm not, yes, I think that's, I don't think I've ever, sometimes I might speak to myself if I'm trying to work something out, but no, I don't really act it. Thank God, actually, because I think it would be disastrous if I did.
And Carey, as far as just being able to tell the difference when an actor is writing when you're reading a script, can you tell that? And then certainly on set, working with Emerald, is that something that you can feel when you're doing the work?
It's something I'm totally aware of. I mean, I remember feeling like the first couple of days, like, oh shit, Emerald should just do this because she's just so good. Emerald likes to downplay her skills as an actor, which is just mad because she's a brilliant actor. But yeah, I mean, I think just because Emerald's such an experienced actor and writer and, you know, understands story so well, I think she's got a really gut instinct about truth and but also about storytelling and putting the sort of minutiae into a big picture, which I don't, you know, have any sort of skill for. I sort of have to just focus on trying to do whatever my part is, honestly. And Emerald is so brilliant because she can be very, very focused on the smallest detail of a performance, but also think about that within the context of the scene and within the movie, but still feel like she's totally laser focused on tiny moments of performance. So I think, you know, I think that's just natural. That's her natural talent as a director. But, you know, perhaps it's served by her acting experience. I don't know. But I did feel like performance-wise, Emerald was absolutely spot on with so many notes and could almost see where I was struggling before I kind of vocalized it a lot of the time.
Emerald, with the influences of the film, obviously, you know, personal experience and personal, just that it feels like a personal film, but I'm also curious about some of the more contemporary, like external influences, pop music. I couldn't help but think about just so many of my friends and their interests and, you know, My Favorite Murder, like things like that, you know, and so I'm curious about like what kind of contemporary sort of things in the current zeitgeist were influential on Promising Young Woman, if any.
God, that's so interesting. I don't know, because I guess, well, certainly the playlist that I listened to the whole time while I was writing it was full of, you know, like Cardi B and Charlie XCX and, you know, Back to Britney in Paris and some of the things that were in there. So like a lot of female vocalists and pop music, and kind of, you know, and sort of darker pop music like Zola Jesus. And as for other things, certainly the visual, I used a lot of visual references, but I think they're probably slightly older, things like To Die For, An American Psycho. I like things that are sort of deceptively stylized. I just think that's super. And actually that's something I think a lot of people, we're all increasingly growing up with now that we have Instagram and all this sort of thing. I think people, their visual references and language is becoming, it's so strong now because everyone has access to such amazing things all the time.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but both with the casting and the style, thinking of sort of that there's a lot of a broad, wide net of the film that you made, that it is, and it does kind of work within the realm of high art pop music to a certain extent, you know, and having even like in the casting too, and having like a lot of recognizable faces. Carey, is that something that you were conscious of, is sort of like the aesthetic and it kind of being something really broad and big, like going for something really big as you were performing?
No, I mean, I think the look of the film and how enticing it is and how it draws you in is so much a part of the genius of this, that there's nothing about this film that makes you feel like you should be watching it. It's a film that you sort of just want to, and I think that's so clever, particularly when it comes to this subject matter, that there's no, this is something that, you know, you're drawn into because of how beautiful and warm, and that you see these actors that you associate with, you know, really lovely nostalgic feelings of, you know, watching your favorite TV shows, your favorite movies. So I think all of that was so clever. I think, you know, the reverse. You know, clearly, you know, obviously doesn't work at all. But I think there's so much of the detail of those sort of throwback references and of course the music. I think all of this is so intentionally designed to stir a feeling in you that makes you feel like you're somewhere really, really safe until you realize that you're not. And so that, but I mean, I see that more as a viewer now really than anything else, because the amazing thing about what Em has done here is that all of that is true, but within that, when we were doing, you know, when we were performing on the day, if you'd, you know, it very much felt about the truth of that story, that nothing felt like it was we weren't catering to anything around us. It was just sort of enhancing what we were doing, but it wasn't, yeah, it just felt like our job was so sort of to be honest, and Emerald being able to juggle both of those things, I think making it look and feel the way that it did, but also the performances in contrast being, you know, truthful and playing all of that straight. Even the comedy in the film is absolutely played straight. No one's doing anything for a cheap laugh. You know, the reason it's so funny is because it's so true to life and the writing is so honest. And that's why it's so darkly funny. There's no kind of like cheap gags in the film.
Emerald, really quick before we go, along with all of your other accomplishments, you're also a Palm Springs Short Fest alumni, and I saw the quick nod to "Careful How You Go" in the film and on the poster. Was there any specific connection, or was that just kind of a fun sort of nod of your previous work in there?
It was just a fun sort of nod. It was partly practical. Cassie was reading a book, and it was originally Deep Water by Patricia Highsmith. And on the day, we suddenly found out we weren't allowed to use it in the movie. So the art department were like, what do we do? I think we probably got to make something up. So I thought, well, that's quite a fun thing to make up. So actually, in the end, it worked out better because they designed this beautiful cover that sort of was designed to sort of go with the whole movie. And yeah, and it felt, I mean, it's sort of slightly egomaniacal, but
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome. It's egomaniacal
awesome.
in the most awesome, fun film language kind of way. It's great. I got a real kick out of noticing that and seeing that. I'm gonna let y'all both go. I want to thank you again for your time and for your film. I enjoyed it so much. I think we're gonna enjoy it so much too, and I can't wait for it to get out to people and for everyone to see it. Thank you both again, and yeah, have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.